Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo action. Today we are here on Diablo 4 with a Pure Summoner Necromancer. That's right, no shadow damage required to make this build strong and to crush. I know, it's kind of strange. This is done in Season 1, so the minions in a lot of ways by themselves are often considered weak. Obviously, with Ring of Mendel, though, it is known that that is definitely not the case. However, oftentimes the minions are paired with another ability for maximum Mendel procs to make it a crusher. But did you know, you actually need nothing but minions and survivability and utility skills, and you can still crush with no problem. Of course, I will be posting the timestamps for every part of this video, so you guys can view every part of this video independently in case you're just interested in a particular part of it. We'll be going over the skills, the Paragon, the Book of the Dead, and the gear in some order. And of course, at the end, I'll also be doing a demo of a fairly high nightmare dungeon to show you guys how the build operates. In general, though, Pure Summoner Necromancer is a super strong build, not to be underestimated. So, of course, we'll go over all aspects of this build. I personally think this is pretty strong. I was playing a Shadow Minion, and Shadow Minion definitely is stronger, don't get me wrong. But some people just want a fantasy of only relying on their minions for damage, and this build will accomplish that for you in its absolute power, the absolute ability that it is capable of. Alright. Anyway, so let's go over the gear actually first. I kind of feel like going over the gear first on this build. This one, it's important. Ideally, you have cooldown reduction, life, armor, and lucky hit chance while you have a barrier. Lucky hit chance is very key for maximizing those Mendel procs, using your other skills that are not your minions to do so. So this helmet has it all. You even have disobedience, which is still the best survivability aspect in the game, even after the nerfs. So you put it on. That's for yourself. This is also pretty ideal, honestly. Damage reduction from close enemies, maximum life, and maximum minion life. There's other types of damage reductions that work just as well, but in general, you want that. You also want to maximize the life on your minions, if at all possible. Those are all very good things here on this build. And then, of course, hardened bones will make your minions a lot stronger as well, so they're not dying. This is very important, especially when you push high-tier nightmare dungeons, because your minions will start dying without this. I've tested it. They die a lot more frequently, and since you don't have the shadow damage on a non-pure minion build to finish them off before they kind of wreck your minions, this is kind of important. Alright. Of course, we also have critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, attack speed, and all stats. Pretty much another 4 out of 4 banger home run on this one. This one is probably one of the most insane items I've ever found in this game. Just look at those rolls. They're almost perfect across the board. 3 of them are perfect. Of course, we will also want more skeleton warriors. It's important to note you could even have more skeleton warriors by putting this aspect on a two-handed weapon or on an amulet. You could do that if you wanted to, but it is not advised for other reasons we'll go over here in a second. But you could put it on the amulet and it really wouldn't be that big of a deal because you'd just be swapping it out with Frenzied Dead. And Frenzied Dead is attack speed. Now attack speed is very important for the damage on your minions, but you can easily have an extra skeleton warrior and it will also be very effective in that regard. Alright, so once again, on this one, not about survivability. Attack speed, non-weapon attack speed, a third of it is inherited by your minions, 30% of it Not your weapon attack speed though, only on other items. So in this case, it would have to be your gloves, and that's about it. It's the only type of attack speed that can be at 30% inherited by the minions that isn't minion attack speed, which is 100% inherited. So all these non-minion stats are inherited 30%. Critical strike chance, lucky hit chance. Minions don't have that. That's actually for proccing Ring of Mendel, so that has nothing to do with that. And the all stats is mostly for your Paragon boards. So that's very key stuff. All stats is pretty solid on most pieces of gear no matter what, just for Paragon. But Paragon isn't really quite as effective on a pure minion build as it might be on certain other builds, so just keep that in mind. Mostly just want lucky hit chance, survivability stats, damage stats for your minions, and of course Ring of Mendel. Cooldown reduction, very important as well. And I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, all that fun stuff. As you can see, the pants look very similar to the armor, and that is no accident. Really just trying to get that total armor up. Really trying to min-max that. Maximum minion life, damage reduction, close damage from minions, all the fun stuff. Now, the real key here is not extra warriors or extra minions, but you do want those as much as possible. It is Shielding Storm. This is what's going to keep you alive on a pure minion build, especially when the minions take a while to kill a monster. Oftentimes single targets, especially when the minions are distracted, can be difficult to take down. This is what's going to allow it to happen right here. Shielding Storm. And Shielding Storm, Bone Storm is great for your minions. Bone Storm provides some extra critical strike chance to your minions, but it also gives you DR for yourself. And more importantly, it is fairly effective for proccing that Ring of Mendel. So you're definitely going to want all of that fun stuff on this build. Of course, also going to have more skeleton mages. Ranks of corpse tendrils, got to keep that vulnerability up from the upgraded corpse tendrils. Movement speed, damage reduction while injured, dodge chance against distant enemies. This is pretty much as good as it gets. You can also get movement speed on the boots as well. But you can see all of these stats are very, very solid. No problem whatsoever. Alright, and then of course, skeleton damage. Always nice to put on the weapon. Now it's note that the minions do not benefit from the weapon attack speed. You will benefit from the lucky hit chance though, once again for the Mendel, so make sure you have a wand. This is why ideally you don't want to use a two-handed weapon, but there's other reasons as well. This is the main reason. The other reason is that you lose an aspect, so yeah, it's not good. Critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies in general though. You're going to have all stats there, critical strike damage, damage to slowed enemies, and vulnerable damage. Very good stuff. The stats really just helping the Paragon board in this case, but ideally you would actually want maybe damage to close here instead of all stats, and that would help you out even more because it would particularly help out your skellies attacking in melee range and help them do maximum damage. Alright. Once again, movement speed, that's actually something I forgot, but that is an important stat. It's helping us go very fast at keeping up with their minions, keeping on top of them for maximizing the benefit of Hellbent Commander. Really want to make sure you're as close to your monsters as possible. You can see that we have a lot of damage reduction from close enemies pretty much everywhere on everything, and that's really good. Just want as much of that damage reduction. We are close to the monsters, so it's really helping us survive. Minion attack speed is very good though, more damage. As you can see, we put the attack speed aspect on the amulet because that has the most impact on all your minions. But you could put an extra skelly as well. It's kind of debatable, but I would say that attack speed in general is just good. And unlike Unyielding Commander, if you're using Army of the Dead, the uptime will be 100% on this practically, whereas that one is not active for very long at all. It's inconsistent, and obviously it doesn't help proc Ring of Mendel, so there's just a lot of problems with Army of the Dead. I kind of hope they maybe buff that ultimate at some point, but for the most part, we're not using it. Notice though, lucky hit chance while you have a barrier is also a solid stat, but cooldown reduction would probably be the thing that we'd really want on here that we don't have on here, but it's not needed. As you'll see, as the build functions, the cooldown reduction is kind of optional. So it's definitely helpful though, because it can more reliably keep up that bone storm. And when they take away the hearts, for sure, it's gonna help to not have to constantly proc Decrepify to do that. Anyway, good stuff. So also this is the Sacrilegious Heart, which is maximizing our damage here with corpse skills. Now, obviously, oh no, sorry, not maximizing. Yeah, I was like totally in a different mode for like a different build. It's maximizing our ability to constantly revive or just use the corpses in general for corpse tendrils and for minions. And so it's gonna automatically repopulate your army when you lose minions. This thing is just OP. Like, the Necromancer has arguably the best hearts out of any of the classes in Season 1. The Malignant Hearts here, and Sacrilegious Heart is insane. Just crazy. Corpse Tendrils is really big. Once again, the minions will benefit from 1/3 of this critical strike chance, and they benefit from, or about 30%, or I should say, and 30% of the critical strike damage as well. So just really solid stuff for just boosting your minions' power. And of course, critical strike damage. Critical strike chance would be nice on this, but instead it's damage to stunned enemies. Yeah, it's pretty good too. Lucky hit chance, as you can see, is practically on everything. That really is the key to making sure we're getting that Mendel proc as often as possible. And of course, the Decrepit Heart is insane. Pretty much getting the Decrepify bonus all the time, as long as you're on top of the monsters, which once again you want to be for Hellbent Commander anyway. So good stuff. Maximum minion life, once again, keeping those minions tanky. It's good stuff. But yeah, anyway, that Abhorrent Decrepify upgrade, as you're going to see when we go over the skills, will lower all of our cooldowns constantly. And that is a thing of beauty. Gotta trust me there. Alright, so Ring of Mendel. Ring of Mendel giving us some extra thorns, which isn't bad. Max minion life, maximum. So every stat on this is amazing for this build, of course, but the real star is that lucky hit chance. That explosion is no joke, and it does a ton of damage from all of your minions and a pretty large AoE. So that's what we want to proc there, and Barber will stack up that damage, of course, making it more formidable. And then, of course, yes, this thing, you can have a pure minion build without this, but it won't be nearly as strong, so keep that in mind. Very, very key item here, Ring of Mendel. It is hard to find sometimes, and yeah, good luck on getting that, and then that just makes it a lot easier to go pure minions for sure. Of course, cooldown reduction, lucky hit chance, you have a barrier, damage reduction will fortify. These are all really solid stats in this build, and you are fortified very often, so of course that is going to be a very key thing. Critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, you have a barrier. Once again, all solid stuff. Alright, of course there's other stats that can be good on this as well, and those are on the written Maxwell guide. Just remember to refer to that for the most optimal stats, but it'll also tell you what all the other good stats are as well, so you can have them on there. Good stuff, and of course, maximizing the uptime on that Bone Storm. You basically want that running 24/7. That is really the key, so Osseous Gale. This is one of the reasons why it's really tough, of course, to justify using a two-hander, maybe for extra vulnerable damage. So fun fact, besides minion stats, vulnerable damage is the only other stat that the minions benefit 100% from. That's why we want vulnerable damage on the weapon, and honestly, even if possible, on the ring. I don't have it there, but it would be nice. The other thing we have it on is on a glyph called Exploit on the Paragon board, which I'll also be talking about. And the fact that your minions benefit from such an insanely strong stat to begin with is really big. So that is definitely why, like, we even sacrifice some maybe other things like minion survivability or some minion damage just to make sure we're getting that vulnerable damage maximized. All the other stats that are non-minion are 30% bonus that are offensive, and only defensive stats that particularly apply to minions count for the minions. So don't worry about the rest of the defensive stats are for you. That's so that you survive. So yeah, keep all that fun stuff in mind while you're looking this stuff over. Alright, so pretty much went over every important thing in regards to the gear. You can see that there's just a lot of minion focus on all the aspects and everything, because we're really just hoping the minions really carry it through for us. Alright, after the gear, I'm actually going to go over Book of the Dead real quick. It's pretty easy. Alright, so you really want corpses. Now, there's a lot of reasons you want corpses. To revive your minions, potentially, if they die. You want them for corpse tendrils. You want them for... yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it on this build. But yeah. You also get fortified from them from a skill on the skill tree called Necrotic Carapace, which we'll also go over. But yeah, you need that. It's good. Also, Reapers do a very powerful wind-up attack that do a lot of damage. So, Reapers are just very nice in general. They are very strong skeletons. Alright, the other thing is you can... you want mages that just do as much damage as possible. That's how you're going to achieve this on this build, is these bone mages here, sacrificing their life for more damage. Now, if this is a shadow build, you'd be going the shadow ones. I have tried the cold aspect. It's not very good. I don't recommend it. It doesn't feel like it really does all that much. They cast Blizzard. It's not fun. I don't know. Maybe someone's found a way to make those semi-effective. I have not. Alright, and then with golems, so there's a lot of choices that you can do with the golem. The mages, you pretty much just want as much damage as possible. Kind of same thing with the skellies, and then also getting corpses off them. Golems are kind of up in the air. There's a lot of things you can do. The only thing I would say not to do is Bone Golem. Bone Golem isn't very good, but if you do Blood Golem though, your Blood Golem absorbing 15% of the damage you take is actually key for clearing like a tier 100 Nightmare dungeon, or just a really high dungeon that's dangerous in general, or if you just want to be tankier in general as you're pushing your character through the game and leveling up. Iron Golem is really strong most of the time though. I would say this is what I prefer. If you want another source of vulnerable and it's kind of difficult to like constantly use corpse tendrils, you can use this. However, I kind of like the idea of just giving the Iron Golem maybe a little bit more damage because you already have consistent vulnerable from corpse tendrils. But I definitely think there's a preference here. It kind of depends on what you're really trying to achieve. At any rate, that's the Book of the Dead. So now it's time for the skills and the Paragon. So, we're actually going to get rid of that there. We'll put that extra one somewhere. So, in Season 1, normally you would put Decrepify in your skill bar, but because you have the Decrepit Heart, you don't actually have to do that. Which means that we can use Blight for extra minion damage, we can use Reap just to be tankier, and to get an automatic corpse in the beginning. There's a lot of different ways you can pull this off. Those are definitely the things I'd recommend though, if you don't need to put Decrepify. If you're on the Eternal Realm, obviously going to be putting Decrepify there, and you can't benefit from that. Because you have to get Decrepify, it's key. At any rate, you're going to go to Enhance Reap, and then Reap. You're going to want to go Supernatural Blight as well. Supernatural Blight is pretty key. This is going to make your minions do more damage. Now, ordinarily, like I said on the Eternal Realm, you're not going to do this. And you're going to need all 3 points into Reap just so you can get down to this tree here. And you're always going to put 3 points into Hewed Flesh. Spiked armor, with this plus Mendon, Thorns is good. Thorns does proc some things, so there's very good stuff in general for just increasing their damage. I kind of like the idea of just giving your minions some extra damage through Thorns. Also, of course, going to have Skeletal Warrior Mastery, which is really good as well. You're going to have that maxed out. And then Blood Mist all the way up to Ghastly Blood Mist, leaving behind a corpse every 1 second. Once again, you want to really produce a lot of corpses, and then you put extra points into Blood Mist so that you can reduce its cooldown. I'm actually going to throw that extra point there because I have Blight on the Season 1 version into Blood Mist for maximum cooldown reduction, because that's cool. It's very effective. It's super effective, one might even say, for those the Pokemon universe. But yeah, anyway. Death's Reach, maxed out. Death's Embrace, less damage to you, more damage to them. So this helps your mage's damage, this helps your skeleton's damage. The game actually calculates how far your minions are from the monster for their damage, not how far you are. That being said, though, you want to be close to your monsters too because of Hellbent Commander, and of course benefiting from other defensive capacities as well, like this one, which is kind of interesting, but just a fun fact about how this works. Skeletal Mage Mastery, max that as well. You're gonna want Plague Corpse Tendrils for a vulnerable effect, which is nice. Max Necrotic Carapace as well. And then you're gonna have maxed Golem Mastery, and then Inspiring Leader, Hellbent Commander, Death's Defense, and Bonded in Essence. If you max all these out, your minions are actually pretty darn strong. Once again, I kind of explained before, but Army of the Dead, I've tried to make it as effective as possible. It's just not the way until they make this ability a lot better in some way, or they make Bone Storm a lot weaker. It would take a lot. Currently, it just seems like Bone Storm is much better for empowering yourself and your minions, especially with Ring of Mendel and otherwise, and just making the most of your survivability, and even giving them some extra crit chance to boot. So, yeah, it's kind of how it is. Now, once again, no shadow damage on this build. I don't even have ultimate shadow on Bone Storm. Nothing. The reason why is it doesn't really do all that much unless you have other shadow abilities to kind of ramp up the Shadow Blight and other damage anyway. So you would have to kind of make it a totally different build in order to take advantage of it. But this is pure minions, so we will actually be using Kalan's Edict. I do hope at some point they buff this, because I feel like this is quite possibly one of the lamest key passives there is, like on any class. It's like, if you haven't taken damage, so, you know, once again, as long as you're surrounded by your minions, you know, you have Shielding Storm on, you charge into minions, that's why you charge in with Blood Mist as well, is to avoid taking damage to maximize their impact from this. So it's very good stuff just in general, and you're gonna want to do that. So it's good. Minions, as you can see though, you can get extra attack speed on them, but once again, it's not super fun or anything. It just makes your minions stronger most of the time. Pretty strong though. It's fun. It's okay. But anyway, hopefully you guys learned something about that. So what we're going to go into next is the Paragon. Now, Paragon, it's definitely some debatable approaches as to what you can do on a pure minion build, but I'll kind of walk you guys through what I've done. So you're going to want damage. Remember, your minions will benefit from a third of even non-minion stats like damage or damage to crowd control. So these aren't bad things to have. Also, your own armor is very good as well too. And so that also goes for the control glyph, which gives you a lot of damage to crowd controlled enemies. Your minions are benefiting from that. And then your minions will do 20% increased damage to stun enemies, and they're mostly stunned because of corpse tendrils, or your golem if you have an iron golem, which is one of the reasons I like iron golem, because it stuns everything. and they're just taking a lot of bonus damage. And notice it says you and your minions, so that is a minion stat as well in control. I like it. I would say amplify is also possible, but and you could use that here instead. It will boost the power, it'll give you more armor, so it'll increase your survivability, and it also does boost minion damage somewhat, but I personally think control is just best on most builds at the moment. That might change at some point, but in general, as you can see, getting that damage, getting that minion armor, minion life, this is just pretty solid since you have all 3 types of minions. Cult Leader board is really good. Getting that Cult Leader, gotta hit it up on the next board here. Skeleton Warriors damage, Skeleton Warriors armor, getting all the blue and rare nodes, damage, attack speed. That also goes for your mages as well, just min-maxing all of your minions' survivability. Dead Razor, this glyph here, very, very good for increasing or just improving your minion survivability and effectiveness in general. It's very, very good stuff. But at any rate, there you have it. It's pretty good. And of course, getting all the rare nodes around them. So this one amplifies the blue nodes, I believe. Yeah. Actually, it's all nodes. Okay. Very cool stuff. But yeah, anyway. As you can see, perfect on this board, and then you get a lot of extra damage reduction for your minions and minion damage. Dead Razor is just really, really solid. And then you can get all that stuff. Now, some people would say maybe that's not the most effective thing. Maybe they'd rather do something else instead, like increase their critical strike damage. You could even do something like put on Essence and get critical strike damage. But remember, your minions only benefit from 30% of it. So once again, there are some options here. There's definitely a decent amount of options. Next up though, Hulking Monstrosity board. Golem armor. May as well increase the golem's damage and maximum life to some degree. And then this is where I put the exploit glyph, which is really key for increasing your damage against vulnerable targets, since they're almost always vulnerable, and vulnerable is just really crazy damage multiplier, and your minions benefit from 100% of it. It's really effective. Definitely recommend getting all that bone damage as much as possible. And of course, may as well increase your golem's damage along the way as well. Don't really want to do everything in this board. There's definitely other things you could do to boost your golem's damage. One thing to note is you can also use the golem glyph, which is not used on this board. But the golem glyph will boost the golem's damage a ton, but note that it only affects one of your minions. So is it really worth taking off one of the more damage-oriented glyphs? I don't think so, but that's kind of up for your, it's up to your discretion. You might just want to boost your minions as much as possible for that minion damage fantasy and not rely necessarily on base damage stats, but that's how it is here. Now note, this next one here is the Scent of Death board. There's a lot of corpses that you're generating. You may as well just get some extra DR when you are close to these things. It's very, very good. Of course, extra damage, skeletal mage damage, all kinds of fun stuff there. No problem. And then of course maxed out mages in terms of damage. They even get extra res from that. And lastly, now you can of course use this glyph earlier on if you're leveling. I'd recommend it because making your warriors strong is good because they do a ton of damage. But at any rate, getting them armor, getting them more damage. And on this board, it would be the Flesh Eater board. You don't want the legendary node on this one though, because you don't really want to benefit your own damage that much. That's not going to help your minions much at all. But getting that damage to elites is nice though. And then of course you can have warrior there. So there's definitely some options. Boosting your mages and warriors. You could even boost your golem. You got exploit. You could even use amplify if you just want to amplify rare nodes to make yourself tankier. You can do essence even on top of exploit just to make use of the biggest multipliers for your damage. This is kind of a balanced approach. and that's what we're going to be showing you guys here. So, I believe we've gone through gear, aspects. Yeah, we've gone through pretty much everything. Book of the Dead. Yep. All right, so yeah, this is pretty much it. This is pretty good. I think this is solid stuff for sure. Yeah, okay. Gone through that, skills and Paragon. So there you go. Alright, so you guys want to see him in action? Often pop some kind of armor potion. You can even pop a... So, interestingly enough, if you really wanted to actually help this build the most, you would actually pop an Elixir of Combat Fortune. Why? Because it's all about those Minion procs. So, this would be nice for survivability. This is definitely like a typical, you know, thing you can do. The problem with these is these don't grow on trees. You can't get 30% ones just anywhere. However, I could proc it for here just to see what happens when our lucky hit chance is truly put to the max. And we're able to do that. Lucky hit chance is nice. And then we're going to do a... we can do a Collapse Vault 76. Without extra armor though, you're gonna want to be careful. You might die. At any rate though, hopefully you guys enjoy the demo here. And it makes you guys want to play this very awesome build. I definitely think minions are a little bit underestimated. However, they're also not overestimated. But Necromancers are so strong right now though that I would say that you could do anything with a Necromancer, and this is probably the best proof you could possibly have of what I just said. I don't think anything can prove it better than the fact that you can just destroy things with minion damage alone for the most part. The rest of these abilities are inconsequential in terms of how much damage they do, but notice here that use Blight to make our minions do as much damage as possible to the monsters on top of it. The lucky hit chance is being procced by Corpse Tendrils. Bone Storm to some extent Blood Mist, but not really. Make sure to use Raised Skeleton to heal your minions, but also to buff them up temporarily. That gives them more damage for free. So, notice that it says here it increases their damage by 30%. As you can see here, the minions do a lot of damage. I know that 30% lucky hit chance won't make or break this build, but it definitely helps. Makes that proc a little bit more reliable. We didn't get like maximum rolls on it on every item, so that, you know. Now you can also use Reap, like I said, and if you're on the Eternal Realm, you would actually be casting Decrep before engaging instead of Reap or Blight. But at any rate, it's one of those skills you initiate with like that, going with Blood Mist or Bone Storm. The Bone Storm is up. And we had cooldown reduction on the amulet, or Bone Storm would be up like literally 100% of the time. But we have really good stats on the amulet, so I can't really complain. It's up like 95% of the chance. 95% of the time. Which is pretty solid stuff if you ask me.
I'm not ready yet.
Alright, so this is what we're gonna do. Someone is inviting me to a party. I don't want to do that right now, no. That's funny. Seems like a good guy though. What's this? Alright. So as you can see here, just generating corpses, powering up the minions. Waiting for that Mendel proc. A lot of the times it's literally what we're doing here. We died in one shot. I promise it was not my fault. I promise with the utmost certainty it is not my fault.
I'm not ready yet.
Okay, so awesome stuff here. Look at all those shock lances. Oh yeah, that's one of the affixes. That's what I thought. It's one of those Nightmare Dungeon affixes. Pretty cool stuff. So what's really cool though is that your minions might not push the fastest through a Nightmare Dungeon, but like any other type of content, it will absolutely smash. Like Helltides, no problem. But as you can see, it can even push through Nightmare Dungeons. Obviously this is a level 100 Pure Summoner Necromancers. So, as they're leveling it up, obviously they're going to be doing lower tier dungeons, or minions are not going to be as strong. Blah 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 blah. As you can see there,
I'm not ready yet.
getting that Mendel proc is pretty key. And Barber will just eat that up and amplify it further a bit. Minions do good damage though. I don't think they can buff them much more than this without them being too OP, but I do think they can definitely buff their damage more. If they did, the pure minion build would definitely be a bit more viable. The only problem though is then people might use that as a way to like buff hybrid builds even more. It's definitely a careful balance for sure. It's interesting how the minions themselves though do so much damage. This level 1 Blight does no damage, by the way. It's literally just for the 15% bonus for monsters that are affected by Blight. Constantly engaging with Blood Mist and or Bone Storm. Bone Storm is higher priority because you want those procs. Blood Mist though does help you avoid damage, which keeps up Kalan's Edict, which is also not a bad thing. You don't want it. Ooh, here we go. As you can see, we're near the minions most of the time while they are doing damage. Really want to make use of that Hellbent Commander if you can. My current amulet actually does not have any rings of Hellbent Commander, but ideally it would. That would boost the minions further. Got good stats on it though, let's be honest. Ideally though, you can get 6 rings to that, and it's actually pretty impactful. So, getting that Bone Storm up in there. Alright. As you can see, most of the time I don't even need to proc Corpse Tendrils, but that's because we have Sacrilegious Heart. If you're on the Eternal Realm, you're going to want to put that down as soon as you get a corpse. Obviously, revive any undeads when they die as well manually. besides just boosting them here and there. Alright, here's the boss. Now, single targets can take a bit, but slowly but surely is really the way with this. As long as the minions are pretty tanky like mine are, you invest in all their tankiness and invest in their damage, you can make the minions do most of the work for you. Now, lucky hit chance percent really helps out any of those lucky hit chance effects. Mendel, big proponent of that. Some skills have higher abilities to proc it than others, but your minions do not proc it, so you really need your abilities to do that, just to reiterate. Did mention that earlier, but that might be something that might be worth reminding you. Actually, I have no ability to do that whatsoever, so... Okay. And... kaboom. There you go. Leveling up the last glyph that even I can benefit from for any kind of necro testing I want to do this season. There you go. What a beast, right? There you have it. You can pretty much rely purely on minion damage as long as you have the Ring of Mendel. That's just how strong the Ring of Mendel is, partially how strong the hearts are as well in Season 1. Keep in mind this was done in Season 1. But of course, there will be timestamps for all of it. Let me know what you guys think about a pure minion build in the comments below. Or if you have tried to max out your minions, were you not able to achieve what this build has achieved? There's also a tier 100 clear that will also be on the guide as well. So yeah, let me know, and let me know how you like this build. If you think this is all the right approach, you think some of the stats are overkill, did you like something else entirely? I think after a lot of testing, this is the best, but of course you guys are free to let me know. And GG guys, let's get it. See you guys next time. Let's go. Let's go.